Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linnell Catalan, and I'm the Director of Programs at Vascular Cures. For those of you who are new to this space, Vascular Cures is a 501(c) national nonprofit. Our overall mission is to improve health outcomes for individuals affected by vascular diseases outside of the heart. Welcome. If you have a moment, please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're calling from. And thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon. These empowerment sessions, we've only had a couple of them before, but they're designed to raise awareness and help us learn about different opportunities that enhance patient, caregiver, and advocate participation as advisors with the aligned purpose of improving health and treatment outcomes. So I'm proud to present our special guest, Tracy Gray. She is the Patient Engagement Lead at the Patient Science and Engagement Division of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Her presentation is an introductory glimpse on how FDA engages patients in medical device efforts. And before we get started, I want to quickly note that we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And I think because we are a smaller group today, I will promote everyone to panelists so we can have more of a collaborative discussion. Tracy can also ask us questions as well as ask her questions. So, but if you have questions, you want to write them ahead of time, you can feel free to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Or you could, if you have any questions or need any assistance, you can directly message me on the chat. And with that, Tracy, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Linnell. And it's hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to join you this afternoon. As Linnell said, I am Tracy Gray. I'm the Patient Engagement Lead in the U.S. Food and Administration Center for Devices and Radiological Health. I'm in the Office of Strategic Partnerships and Technology Innovation. I've been with FDA for a little over 2 years, and prior to that, I was with another federal government agency, the Health Resources and Services Administration. My background, I've worked in healthcare my entire life, started out in big pharma, went on to work for a disproportionate share health system for a while, doing grassroots type of marketing initiatives and managed care initiatives. Prior to going back to school for a second career to become a nurse, worked in the ICU for a short period of time prior to joining the federal government. So I've, like I said, been in healthcare my entire life and enjoy the opportunity to work with FDA in the capacity that I serve now. So it's my pleasure to be here with you in Vascular Cures to discuss how the FDA includes patients in medical device regulatory efforts. So my goal today is to share information with you that will help to answer these questions. Who is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, commonly known as FDA? What does the FDA do? For example, what's the focus of our work? Why are patients important to FDA? And how do we engage them in our work? And specifically in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, referred to as CDRH, which again is where I work. And what are healthcare stakeholders? How are they becoming more focused on patients? And what are some benefits of having patients as advisors early in the design and conduct of medical device clinical studies? And we'll go through some highlights of CDRH's relatively new guidance, which is patient engagement in the design and conduct of medical device clinical studies. The FDA has 6 centers, each have a specific focus in fulfilling our mission. Through the work of these centers, FDA protects the public health by making sure that products that are available to the public are safe and effective and provide benefits that outweigh the risks for intended use. We provide feedback to product developers in all phases of the product's life cycle, starting with when they have an idea about what product to make to after the product has been on the market and it's being monitored for safety. The products that we regulate, or in other words, oversee, include medical devices and radiation-emitting products, which includes devices like pacemakers that help the heartbeat, insulin pumps for diabetes, and medical equipment that's used in a hospital, like X-ray machines or MRIs. Animal and human drugs, both prescription and non-prescription, are regulated. such as the drugs that you may take or drugs that you give to your pet for a certain illness. Biologics, which includes vaccines like the one to protect you from getting COVID-19 or the chickenpox. We also regulate blood products. We make sure that foods are safe, wholesome, sanitary, and they're properly labeled, as well as the additives and ingredients that are used in foods. We ensure that cosmetics are safe and properly labeled. We regulate tobacco products, and we also advance public health by helping to speed product innovation. So what is the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, which I'll refer to as CDRH, do? So CDRH protects and promotes public health again, and it makes sure that patients and medical device providers have timely access to effective and high quality medical devices and safe radiation emitting products. We oversee more than 6,000 types of medical devices that are regulated by FDA's Center for Medical Devices and Radiological Health. Some of our approved devices are new, while others may be approved for new uses. So for example, in March of this year, FDA granted approval to market a new pacemaker system to correct slow or regular beating hearts by generating electrical pulses to make the heart beat at a normal rate. In February, we granted an approval for a new indication of an already approved cardiac device that's used to measure and monitor pulmonary artery pressure and heart rate for patients with heart failure. So the new approval expanded the indication for use to include people with less severe heart failure or for those with worsening heart failure. You can access FDA's list of cleared or approved medical devices by year on our webpage, and the link to this webpage will be provided at the end of this presentation under patient engagement resources. CDRH has mechanisms in place to engage with patients to hear, understand, and integrate their perspectives into our regulatory work. The CDRH Patient Science and Engagement Program plays an integral part in these efforts. The Patient Science and Engagement team is comprised of experts who are committed to engaging with patients as partners, including their experiences with living with a specific condition and devices used to diagnose, treat, and manage their condition, and looking at various phases of the medical device development and evaluation. We also develop tools that measure patient experiences and perspectives. So why are patients important to CDRH? At CDRH, patients are at the heart of all we do. Our vision is for patients in the United States to have access to high quality, safe, and effective medical devices of public importance first in the world. In other words, we want our country to have the most effective and safest medical devices. Before the focus on patient engagement, we looked at new technologies, and we often had questions about how it made patients feel, whether they felt better or worse. Before the focus, now we're able to take what we learned from patients and it sheds light on our work. In return, the information we have about the way devices work and how well they work in certain patients can be considered by patients like you or caregivers when you talk with your doctor about what's the best choice for you. We often talk about patient engagement, but what exactly does that mean? Our definition describes patient engagement as intentional, meaningful interactions with patients that provides opportunities for mutual learning and effective collaborations. In other words, the exchange of important information with patients about their medical condition and the devices used to manage their condition. This exchange benefits both parties involved. Patients are experts in their conditions and offer valuable information about living with the condition and its treatments. These perspectives can significantly impact the development, evaluation, and monitoring of medical devices. Benefits of hearing from patients could be experienced at all stages of the medical device product lifecycle, including designing medical devices with insights on unmet needs or usability issues, planning or conducting medical device clinical investigations, which, as you will learn today, is the focus of our recent guidance, helping to identify or refine emerging safety signals, more effectively communicating with affected patients about recalls or other safety messages, and identifying specific populations' perspectives on benefit risk for a given treatment. So now for our first polling question. There will be a couple more of these that are included in this presentation. With each polling question, please select the best answer. So polling question number 1, what are some ways that you have been engaged? I think Linnell has that up on the screen. And there are the choices: small group conversations, public meetings, advisory committee meetings, written correspondence, or comments, surveys, or I'm not sure.
Okay, we can leave this up for a few more seconds. If you want to weigh in, please select your choice on the poll question. We have currently written correspondence and comments, primarily surveys. About 50-50 written correspondence and comments and surveys.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So everyone seems to have some experience with patient engagement, so that's great. FDA values patients and provides various opportunities for patient engagement. In addition to CDRH patient engagement through our Patient and Caregiver Connection, which we refer to as PCC, and the Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, also known as PEAC, FDA has other formal ways to talk to patients about their experiences, including listening sessions with patients who have rare diseases. These sessions help inform us about all medical products, not just drugs, unlike the patient-focused drug development meetings, PFDD, whose primary goal is to better include the patient's voice in drug development and evaluation. The CDRH Patient and Caregiver Connection provides CDRH staff with broad and timely access to aggregate patient and caregiver experiences about what it's like to live with their medical condition and the medical devices used to diagnose, treat, or manage the condition. Through the PCC, we can also learn about patients' experiences regarding current issues or trends related to medical devices. FDA does not seek formally or informally group opinions, advice, or recommendations from patients or caregivers. The Patient and Caregiver Connection has 19 partner organizations who our staff may contact when they need patient input that's relevant to their work. By hearing directly from patients and caregivers, our staff is able to learn about what's most important to them, including how to manage their symptoms and the treatment risks they're willing to take to get better. Patient engagement is part of the daily work of CDRH. Across the center, we're engaging patients who are willing to share their experiences with a medical device in various stages of the medical device's life cycle. We may survey members of the CDRH Patient and Caregiver Connection to get their members' broad feedback on their experience related to a topic of interest to the CDRH medical device team. We may also engage with patients through patient group conversations that are generally at the request of the device team and are designed to meet the needs of the team and generally focus on a specific medical condition, disease, or device. These group conversations allow for open dialogue between CDRH and a small group of patients or representatives of patient groups. These conversations are not open to the public. CDRH-sponsored town halls are open to all CDRH staff, and the patient engagement topics can be broad, and they're not necessarily focused on a specific medical condition, disease, or device. The format of the town hall is flexible and may include a panel of experts, a series of presentations, an exhibition, and a listening session. Then there's the CDRH Public Health Symposiums that offer multidisciplinary perspectives on between CDRH staff and external subject matter experts, care partners, and patients or patient groups. For example, one of the medical device offices recently conducted a public workshop on oligometastases of the lung, where patients and a caregiver shared their experiences with this condition and the study design considerations for novel technology used to treat this condition. CDRH has also worked with consumers, patient organizations, and healthcare professional societies to understand and address common questions and concerns related to a device recall. CDRH also engages patients through the Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, PEAK. So I've mentioned PEAK, the CDRH Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, a couple of times. Now I'd like to share a little bit more with you about PEAK. So PEAK is the only FDA advisory committee comprised solely of different types of patients, caregivers, and patient advocates who share their knowledge and what they think about specific topics. They advise and make formal recommendations to FDA, and they serve as someone CDRH can go to for their expertise on things that are relevant to patients. This slide includes a list of topics that have been addressed by PEAK and the topic of the upcoming July meeting on augmented reality and virtual reality medical devices. The PEAK's recommendations lead to tangible impacts. For example, the PEAK discussed artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is increasingly becoming used in healthcare settings to help diagnose illnesses in patients sooner. AI/ML involves using machines that mimic how humans would think by teaching the machines using patient data sets. While AI/ML represents an advancement in healthcare technology, the PEAK made recommendations to consider for medical devices using AI/ML that are important to patients, like the range of data that's being used to train the machines. Does the data reflect diverse populations? What is the race, age, sex, income, and education levels of the population? Patients want to know if the data sets includes patients like them, and is the data what we think it is? How is the device information shared with patients? They would love to know what went into designing the device and factors that impact the patient's trust of the technology. Another tangible outcome of PEAK is the guidance issued on January 26th, the newer guidance that I've referenced, patient engagement in the design and conduct of medical device clinical studies. This topic was initially discussed at the 2017 PEAK meeting. In addition to directly engaging patients through the various mechanisms shared, CDRH also issues a patient science and engagement newsletter to update subscribers about various CDRH initiatives involving patients. Let's take a moment to respond to our polling question number 2. What are some benefits of engaging patients in medical device study design and conduct? So you can see the answers. The options rather. Medical device design is better aligned with patient needs, higher retention of research participants and study completion, research tools measure outcomes that are most important to patients, medical devices are designed with the benefits and risk trade-offs that are acceptable to patients, fewer protocol changes and violations, and all of the above.
All right, it looks like medical device design is better aligned with, everybody selected all of the options, at least, with the leading answer being the first response, which is medical device design is better aligned with patient needs. Okay, very good. All right, well, that leads us right into our next slide. So patients are being engaged in many different ways in the healthcare setting, including medical device clinical trials. Historically, medical device developers have worked with scientific experts, clinical researchers, and the FDA to design and conduct clinical investigations. This process often did not incorporate input from the patients in the design and conduct of the study, capture outcomes that are important to patients, or adequately communicate study results to the participants. This is changing. Patients are now being engaged throughout the product lifecycle. Clinical investigations have become more patient-focused and reflect patient values, leading to improved clinical investigation, quality outcomes that are important to patients. In the next few slides, we'll take a look at how CDRH encourages patient engagement through our recent guidance that was issued in January. FDA received feedback from patients and industry at the 2017 PEAK meeting and the public docket, indicating broad support for patient engagement in clinical studies. However, we heard about several common perceived barriers and challenges to such engagement, including but not limited to
the perception that patient engagement in the design and conduct of clinical studies is not allowed by FDA or valued by research teams. There are challenges finding patient advisors who are knowledgeable about the clinical study methodology. Site investigators are reluctant to allow sponsors to engage with patients except as study research participants. The logistical challenges of engaging with patient advisors in person, which may preclude their involvement in the design of clinical studies, and challenges with determining which patient advisors or patient organizations should be engaged, and if multiple patient advisors are engaged, how to reconcile their varying perspectives. Similar comments were also expressed at the 2019 FDA City Public Workshop. This guidance intends to address some of these perceived barriers and challenges. The purpose of the guidance is to help sponsors or medical device manufacturers understand how they can involve or use patient engagement to elicit experience, perspectives, and other relevant information from patient advisors to improve the design and conduct of medical device clinical studies, highlight the benefits of engaging patients with patient advisors early in the medical device development process, illustrate which patient engagement activities are generally not considered by FDA to constitute research or in activities subject to FDA's regulations, including regulations regarding institutional review boards, and address common questions and misconceptions about collecting and submitting to FDA patient engagement information regarding the design and conduct of the medical device clinical study. So when can patient advisors be involved? Sponsors should consider, let me just back up for a second. I thought I missed something. No. So when can patient advisors be involved? Sponsors should consider involving patient advisors during the early planning phases of the clinical studies so that their input can be incorporated while study plan is being developed, especially in innovative areas or new target patient populations. We encourage sponsors to confer with patient advisors when designing or planning the clinical study. This could help identify which potential endpoints are meaningful to patients and avoid unanticipated issues that could hinder recruitment. For ongoing studies that face significant challenges with study research participant recruitment and/or retention, sponsors may want to consider involving patient advisors along with the study coordinator to troubleshoot and propose potential solutions. Sponsors may also want to consider involving patient advisors post-study to inform improvements for future studies. Some patient engagement activities that may enhance the design and conduct of clinical studies include, but are not limited to, improving the informed consent document to ensure patients understand the information presented for the clinical study, obtaining input on flexible options for follow-up visits and data collection techniques to reduce unnecessary burden on study and research participants who may have challenges fulfilling the follow-up schedule, reducing the recruitment barriers or other issues such as causes of study delays or challenges not anticipated before the study, and discussing which potential endpoints are meaningful to the treatment of the specific disease or condition, and identifying potential barriers to participation, particularly when those underrepresented groups, underrepresented groups may share ways to improve recruitment challenges or other experience during the study to help to streamline and improve those studies. Informing the concepts that should be captured by patient-reported outcome measures in the clinical study to better understand and reflect outcomes that are important to patients, and informing the design of patient preference studies to inform the development of clinical studies to help understand the benefit and risk trade-offs among patients for the proposed treatment of multiple treatment options used for the disease or condition. And I'm going to back up a second because I think I skimmed over this part. So in doing all those things that I mentioned, some of the potentials for having advisors in giving input in the clinical studies, it does result, some of the things that it results in is faster study and research participant recruitment, enrollment, and study completion, greater study research participant commitment and retention, resulting in a decreased loss to follow-up, greater study research participant adherence, resulting in fewer protocol deviations or violations, greater study and research participation by diverse populations, fewer protocol revisions, streamlined data collection, resulting in better quality data, and more relevant data on outcomes that matter to patients. Patients are increasingly becoming the focal point of healthcare stakeholder initiatives, including medical device manufacturers who are designing medical devices that are responsive to patient needs, as well as regulators, payers, and healthcare systems who are increasing their focus on patients as well. So some things are payers, like within the, they're looking at provider networks, making sure that they have a good representation of the physicians that patients want. They're looking at their out-of-pocket expense to the patient and the deductibles, high and low deductible options. Healthcare economists are looking at ways that they can lower the cost of healthcare and looking at value-based models. Healthcare providers are looking at more flexible ways to reach, for patients to be able to reach their providers and access their own data through electronic health records. Healthcare systems are having larger networks that provide more accessible networks on a regional and national level, making transportability easier if patients should relocate. And also looking at ways to reduce the burden on PCPs, primary care and specialty physicians in terms of referral authorizations. Those are just some examples. The ways that patients are engaged may vary. Patients may be engaged as study participants or as informal contributors to unstructured discussions. As collaborators, patients may serve in the role of a consultant, interviewee, focus group participant, or survey completer. Patients can also be partners who are investigators or co-investigators in clinical trials, or be leaders who initiate or lead stakeholder groups.
If you have a chance, please respond to this full question. What are the ways patients can be engaged with the FDA?
All right, so that's the last polling question. What are ways patients can be engaged with FDA?
Yes, and I think most people answered all of the above.
Oh,
yes.
Very brilliant people.
Yes, they're listening.